The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All righty, here we go. It may be an off week, but we've got a monstrous show lined up. As coming up on the program, Jimmy Hyams will join us. We love visiting with Jimmy each and every Wednesday. Brought to you by Ray Varner Ford. Also, we will get to a couple of other topics that I think are at the top of your list. One in particular is I'm not going to dance around the Lance Hurd subject any longer. Later in the program, I'm going to tell you the real story based off what I've been told. I know a lot of you have been asking, so we will get to that later in the program. Hang tight with me. Who's the worst person, Lane Kiffin or Hugh Freeze? Because Lane Kiffin takes a shot at Hugh Freeze. Tennessee's offense versus their offense in 2022. We'll discuss that in 4 downs. Also, later in the program, can the Vols win a national title? Well, I polled several experts, including Paul Feinbaum and Josh Pate. That's all on offthehooksports.com. But we will share those answers with you via the YouTube as we get off and rolling. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Their attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. banksandjones.com. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good. How are you doing, Dave?
Never better. Looking forward to visiting with Jimmy Hyams here in a moment, as I think he's with us right now, as Jimmy's appearance is brought to you by our good friends at Ray Varner Ford. Here is Jimmy Hyams right now. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you?
I'm well. I made this decision, and I need Caleb's approval and preferably yours as well. I think the guests should go in the middle. Caleb, do we want to make that call right now? What do you think?
Yeah, let's put the guest in the middle. I'm totally fine with that.
Guest in the middle. There you go. All right, Jimmy. So we are off and rolling. Please hit that like and subscribe button. I'll remind you that Jimmy's appearance is brought to you by Ray Varner Ford. Dependability you can trust. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. And that leads us to today's tough question right now. Hit that like and subscribe button off the Hook Sports.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, now, first of all, we have to lay the foundation of the expectations leading into the season. And we're going to talk to Jimmy about Nico Iamaleava here in a moment. But first, today's tough question is this. Is Oklahoma the biggest win of the Josh Heupel era? Jimmy, I know there's an Alabama game in there in 2022, and I'm sure that most people would naturally say that. As a matter of fact, I believe it's our poll question on YouTube, so we would love for people to vote. Jimmy, how does that statement strike you, that this win may actually be bigger than the Alabama win?
I've got to go with the Alabama win. I think the Oklahoma win is big. But here's the thing. Oklahoma might be a 500 team, or they may be a 7-win team. That Alabama team was a top 5 team, was a national championship caliber team. We don't know about Oklahoma yet. And in fact, they're making a change at quarterback. I was very unimpressed with Oklahoma's offense. I do think they have a very good defense, but Oklahoma would have to be, to me, a great team for you to say this is the best win that Heupel's had. And I don't think they are. So I've got to go with Alabama in 2022.
Okay, that's very fair. My argument would be that Josh Heupel did it a different way, that Josh Heupel showed another side of himself, and also showed that he could recruit the past few years based off the talent I saw on the field. Tennessee, on the other hand, if not for some Alabama mistakes down the line, could have lost that game. So that would be my argument on the other side.
That Alabama could have lost it if not for mistakes.
Yes,
right.
could have. No, Alabama could have won that game. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, on the flip side, if Oklahoma converts a 2-point conversion late and then gets an onside kick, who knows what happens on that one? But to me, I'm waiting to see a little bit because I just don't think Oklahoma's that good, and I know how good Alabama was. Now, you're right. This was a different way for Josh Heupel to win a game. It's only the second time I know at Tennessee and maybe in his career as a head coach that he's won a game when he scored fewer than 30 points. But he relied on his defense. I think he got spooked by Nico having a couple of sack fumbles, one that was on Tennessee's own 5-yard line. I think that led him to be conservative. And I thought he went conservative too soon. I thought he went conservative in the second quarter. What he did in the fourth quarter to run the clock and so forth, I didn't have much of an issue. But I thought he pulled in the reins a little bit too early in that game, meaning in the second quarter. When I thought he probably should have tried to extend the lead. But regardless, the way he coached it, the trying to win the game. And here's the other thing, too. How many times in his career has he been able to rely on a defense to say, hey, I can shut this thing down. My defense is good enough to hold this lead. So I think that played into it as well. But I thought we saw in the second half, I thought we saw a very mature Josh Heupel in terms of calling plays and not trying to get too dangerous and giving up the lead.
Okay, the poll question, what was Tennessee's bigger win, Alabama 2022 or Oklahoma last week? Caleb, we haven't asked you yet with the new fresh do, I see. We haven't asked you yet. What say you?
Yeah, this one's actually really, really tough for me because while I agree with Jimmy that the Alabama win is bigger in terms of who was the better team, I mean, that was the game that legitimized that. It's a game that legitimized that Tennessee's not just another 9-win program under Josh Heupel, which is what you knew was their max of the ceiling under Butch Jones. But Jimmy, I got to go with this one because of the biggest red flag surrounding Josh Heupel up to this point. And it wasn't his lack of defense or anything like that. That's how he runs the system. It's that there was legitimate concern that Tennessee couldn't be a consistent road team under Josh Heupel. They were bad on the road last year. They were horrible on the road last year. And lost to a very bad Florida team. So to go to Oklahoma, a night game, the SEC opener for that team, and beat them 25-15 in a game that honestly, if Josh Heupel wanted to, probably could have beaten them by 3 touchdowns. I thought really
should have. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought really spoke volumes to because it was that Alabama game. You're right, that was a back and forth, exciting shootout. That wow, Tennessee beats a great team, but the reason I say this one's more significant is because it was on the road and Tennessee controlled that game. They completely dictated that game from start to finish.
Yeah, they control the line of scrimmage. I will say that they've had other big road wins. They went to LSU and beat the heck out of LSU in 2022, and LSU won the West Division that year and was a 10-win team. So he's not struck out completely in road games. He has struck out a few times, but not completely. But I will ask you this, Caleb. If Oklahoma goes 6-6 this year, would you still say it's the biggest win for Heupel?
Well, I mean, I might because I think this a 6-6 for Oklahoma would be an 8-4, 9-3 on an average schedule because they have the most brutal schedule I think I've ever seen. And to your LSU point, there's a YouTube channel up, and Jimmy, you're from Louisiana, so you probably know, but there's a guy who tracks LSU's like entire history, and I mean dating back to the 40s on their night games versus their day games. There is such a drop off between LSU at home at noon and LSU at home at 7:00 at night. That
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I covered that program for a number of years. That's true. I agree with that. But still, when it shows the final score, it doesn't say whether it's a night game or a noon game. So
no, that's true.
And you beat Jaden Daniels, who won the Heisman Trophy the next year. I thought that was a very impressive win, and they controlled that game too and won by a much wider margin against LSU. But I just don't think Oklahoma's that good, and that's one reason I'm putting the Alabama win ahead of it. And as the season goes on, this game could end up being more important. If Oklahoma ends up winning 8 or 9 games, then this becomes a more significant win for Tennessee. But see, this game, if Oklahoma ends up faltering and going 6-6, this is going to hurt Tennessee's strength of schedule and their argument for getting into the college football playoff potentially.
No, I agree. And Jimmy, going back, I guess I'm arguing with myself now, but I look at Alabama 2022, and they may not have some of those players that control the line of scrimmage if they don't have that trademark sort of win. You have to factor that in too. It kind of put Tennessee on the map, so to speak, maybe a little bit prematurely, but it put them on the map.
Well, I think it did. It also put a whole lot of fans in the hospital because there was a record number of torn meniscus from fans that jumped onto the field. I remember that because I'd actually torn my meniscus before that, and I went in to see my doctor, and he said, "Yeah, we just set a record for torn meniscus from the fans jumping onto the field."
Oh, I thought you were joking.
No, I'm serious.
Now, our own Marlon McKinney at 65 years, or I don't want to age him, however old he is, jumped on the field as well. You hinted at something that people have brought up that we might disagree with, but I want to discuss it, and that is, did Josh Heupel take his foot off the gas too soon and play too conservative? Jimmy Hyams' appearance is brought to you by Ray Varner Ford.
4x4 Active, $46,529. 24 Ford Big Bend Bronco 4-door, $40,949. 24 Ford F-150 Super Crew 4x4 STX, $46,214.
Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
All right, Jimmy, let me ask you, because that notion has been brought up to me out in public, but not on this program so much. Did Josh Heupel take his foot off the gas? Was he too conservative too early?
Yes, in the first half, I thought he was. I mean, you play, look, against Kent State, you're onside kicking in the first quarter, and then you call a timeout toward the end of the half to pour on more points. I think he did get a little bit scared with Nico with the sack fumbles, but it was after the the safety, when it was 12-3. That's when he went in a shell. And here's my evidence. The next 9 possessions for Tennessee, they ran the football on first down every time to start that possession and gain 15 yards. And I thought, man, throw a pass. Now, Will Overstreet, whose opinion I respect greatly, said that Brent Venables had thrown something different at Tennessee, that he showed a 6-man look, and then at the snap, they converged and made it basically an 8-man line that made it hard to run against. Well, then why didn't you throw the football if that's what they were doing? I thought he should have thrown one first down. He didn't have to throw a 50-yard pass and put Nico in danger of being sacked again, but throw something quick, a slant, a quick screen, a flanker screen. Do something, I thought, on first down, because I think we'd all agree if Tennessee clicks on a first down play, gets 7, 8, 12, 15 yards, and they get rolling, that's a hard possession to stop. But when they're gaining a less than 2 yards of play on first down, then their offense is not as hard to stop. So I thought earlier in the second quarter, he went too conservative. When you got into the second half and you're up 22-3, I'm okay with milking the clock, but I just thought he went conservative too soon.
So to Caleb, a new poll question. Sorry, Caleb. What was Tennessee's bigger win? Alabama gets 81% of the vote. I'm not surprised. Jimmy actually, and I may have changed my own mind. Was Josh Heupel too conservative versus Oklahoma? Yes, could have run it up. No, controlled the ball. Caleb?
So, Jimmy, what about the moment? Here's the moment where it hit me, and it was actually in the opening drive of the second half. They're up 19-3. They get to field goal range, and I think it's like 3rd and 6, and he calls a simple draw and just said, let's settle for the field goal.
Yes.
Was that too conservative to you, or was that, I can just get this 3-score lead, and Oklahoma's offense is so bad, I know they can't come back from a 3-score deficit?
That actually was too conservative for me. You had no chance of gaining a first down, and it was 3rd and 7. They gave it to Bishop. He gained 1 yard, and you kick a field goal. I thought they should have taken and it doesn't have to be a deep shot. It could be something short underneath him. We know he's a very accurate passer. So give him a chance to get a first down. Tennessee had no chance to get a first down on that play. So I did think that was too conservative, and that was in the third quarter. I thought there were just times where I was kind of surprised that he played it as close to the vest as he did.
All right, good stuff. Moving forward, Nico Iamaleava, has he exceeded your expectations, Jimmy? First, I guess we would need you to tell us your preseason expectations, and then we can kind of take that next step.
No, he has not exceeded my expectations. I thought he'd be a really good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's a really good quarterback right now. He's had 2 turnovers in 2 different games, 2 against NC State, 2 against Oklahoma. Sometimes it's hard for me to blame a quarterback for a sack fumble. I would blame him if he holds the ball too long and gets sacked. But he didn't get much protection because I didn't think Tennessee's tackles played very well, Dane Davis in particular. But Lance Hurd was out, and then Campbell goes down. They were a mess at tackle. And I do think that led to some of the conservatism from Heupel's standpoint. But when I look at Nico's numbers, I think he's played well. I would give him a B+ so far. And I think as the season goes, he's going to get better. But he's played about like I thought he would so far.
Jimmy, how would you compare his trajectory to you guys covered the team, so I just want to throw it out. You know, the narrative of the 98 team is that T. Martin, they really had to bring him along. He struggled early, and then he really got his rhythm going. I guess it was the Georgia game that year. Do you see a similar trajectory with Nico, just on a higher scale, because they're throwing it a lot more nowadays?
On a higher scale, yeah, because look, frankly, T. Martin, like when they beat Syracuse, he helped win that game with his legs. He had a 50 or 60-yard run late in that game to set up a field goal, right, to help win it. His passing numbers weren't impressive. Do you know what he did against Florida? Do you remember that?
It's like 84 yards, wasn't it?
7 of 20 for 64 yards. He didn't play well at all. And Tennessee relied on the defense and they relied on the running game. Nico's far ahead of where T. Martin was at this point, in my opinion. And then they brought T along slowly. T was never, I know that he completed 23 in a row against South Carolina, but he was never as consistently accurate as Nico is. And T was more likely to beat you running. And Nico's a good runner. I would take T as a runner over Nico at this point. But there's similarities, and I think they're bringing Nico along a little bit slowly, but not as slowly as Tennessee did with T. Martin. Tennessee protected T and used their defense until T finally hit a groove about, 4 or 5 games into that season.
Yeah, and I've always wondered, now this is T saying this as a player, but T. Martin believes he could have done more and was frustrated by the fact that they held the reins in on him. But that's a player talking. But I can tell you some other players thought the same thing. Jimmy, do you think T could have done more if they would have opened up the playbook a little bit? I mean, in retrospect, they did the right thing, so nobody's griping about it.
My hesitation is this. Tennessee saw what T was doing in practice. Now, and maybe Tennessee's persuaded by this. So I'll give you 2 examples. I remember they had a scrimmage in the spring, and the offense couldn't get a first down, and T was ineffective. Now, they had a great defense, but there was concern. So I recently talked to Randy Sanders, and he said, you talk about not getting a first down before in the spring. We had a scrimmage a week and a half before the season, and we couldn't get a first down. We were awful. And so I think they went in with, God, we have to be conservative because we're not playing well. Our offense isn't doing anything. T's struggling a little bit. So I think they went conservative. I don't know if they knew how good their defense was, but they could do nothing against their own defense. And so I think they felt like, God, the offense is really not very good. So I think that probably persuaded the coaching staff to be pretty conservative early in the season with T. Could they have thrown more with him? Maybe. Was he ready? I don't know. They should have a better idea than we do about was he ready based on what he's doing in practice. But in practice before the season, offense was doing nothing. And I think that's why Tennessee was conservative with T.
Shameless plug. Caleb, feel free to jump in there. But if you would like, you can purchase and celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's 1998 championship that has that story in it as well. The book is available and some autographed copies by some former Vols. Sorry, Jimmy. All right, go ahead, Caleb.
Jimmy, so let's project for a minute because Tennessee's got a bye. They come back, they play Arkansas, they play Florida, kind of just the beginning of just a regular SEC schedule. Do you think coming out of the bye, Nico will start to look more and more like, and the offense will start to look more and more like the offense of 2022 as the season progresses? Or do you think what they've done the last, and their 2 main Power 5 games is going to be the standard of how they win games this year?
No, I think you'll see more of the 2022 version. I think the Oklahoma game was more of an outlier. was almost like the Texas A&M game a year ago when A&M was ineffective, their quarterback stunk, and Tennessee decided we don't need to do much on offense. We can win this game by playing ball control, time of possession. So, no, I think you'll see that. And by the way, when they go to Arkansas has the ability to score some points. They've got a really good running back, the transfer from Utah named Jackson. They got a pretty good quarterback in Taylor Green. He's prone to mistakes, but he's got a lot of ability. And, they got 640 yards against Oklahoma State on the road. So I think Tennessee will go back to being more open, throwing the football more, and trying to pile on points against Arkansas and future opponents than they did against Oklahoma.
Jimmy, do I sound like a Nico apologist when I say now? Certainly, a strip sack from the blind side, that's tough to overcome as a quarterback. But ball security is something. And but am I being a Nico apologist when I say, well, the fumbles weren't really his fault? And now twice I have seen him play with a certain maturity, the Citrus Bowl, because I thought he didn't force things. Mm-hmm. And then he did force a pass to North Carolina State, which he's admitted to. And he didn't force anything, I didn't think, against Oklahoma. Do I sound like a Nico apologist there? Because he hasn't exceeded my expectations, but I thought he'd be a Heisman Trophy type of candidate anyway. So do I sound like I'm making excuses for him?
Well, I get the sack fumble deal because, again, my feeling is if you hold the ball too long and it's a sack fumble, I probably ought to go back and take a look at it again. Sometimes they're unavoidable. Now, I've seen Tom Brady and Peyton Manning fumble on sacks when they got clobbered and didn't have enough time to throw the football. I do not and did not think that Nico was a Heisman Trophy candidate this year. He may evolve into that, and I think maybe next year. I was actually shocked when I saw a recent poll that had him fourth in terms of odds to win the Heisman this year. I don't get that. He's not played nearly at that level, in my opinion. But I don't think he was that accurate against Oklahoma. He threw several errant passes in that game, which I also think concerned Hype a little bit. I still think he's evolving and maturing as a quarterback. He is not near the finished product we're going to see. So I think he is going to get better as the season goes on. The key is how well is he going to play when they take on Alabama and Georgia? That's a big key. And I think he's got the potential to play really well in those games. Tennessee, close to the vest against Oklahoma, didn't open it up as much, so he didn't get to see as much of his skill set. But I think as Tennessee goes on, they'll open it up. And to me, I may end up being wrong. From what I've seen, the only two teams I think that can beat Tennessee right now are Alabama and Georgia.
Yep, I agree. The poll question was Josh Heupel too conservative versus Oklahoma. Please vote on that now. I'll give you an update and then get to Caleb. As I remind you, portions of the program brought to you by Peak IV Hydration. South Knoxville and Sevierville. Now, they are closed today, but you can order at peakivhydration.com. If we can drop that in the chat. 105-star reviews. We're like, what are they going to come to my house and give me an IV? No. They have fantastic patches that replace all those vitamins and minerals that you may have lost from, I don't know, Jimmy, a long day on the golf course or a long night at a bar. So it'll do all of that. And Caleb, maybe even a long night having to stay up with your 3-month-old. By the way, any super chats you want to throw in goes to Caleb's 3-month-old son Quincy's college fund, and I'm not allowing him to gamble it away. Caleb?
I could turn that money into so much more, guys.
No, that's how it starts. And the next thing, you're at the craps table till 3 a.m.
So, Jimmy, how concerned are you about the fact that, and I went back and watched some of that Oklahoma game. On some of the RPOs, am I alone, guy? And I'll ask both you guys, am I alone in thinking my one red flag with Nico is that I've noticed does it seem like he's making the wrong read a lot of times on the RPOs, on when to pull it and when to run it or hand it off?
Caleb, I've wondered the same thing, but I also wonder this. I do believe that a lot of those calls are predetermined. I think a lot of times when you looked at Joe Milton, you thought, why didn't he keep it? I think they predetermined, said you're handing it off. So I think sometimes they have the option to keep, and I think sometimes it's a predetermined you're running the football. But I saw the same thing you saw. There were a number of times I thought, boy, if Nico had kept the ball, he had a wide open area on the edge to run and gain some yards. So I'm hesitant to say he's misreading it because I don't know if it's a predetermined call. But I think they should have, if they are predetermined, I think they should have more options for a keep on that play, because there were a number of times he could have gained significant yardage against Oklahoma and he handed it off.
Okay, let me ask you both this question to make sure that we're all on the same page. So, Caleb, you predicted Nico would win the Heisman Trophy. Okay,
I did.
Okay, so
Not this year.
Yes, this year.
No, I did this year. Yeah,
I thought in his career. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to win that one.
It would be tough to exceed those expectations, but has he exceeded or underwhelmed your expectations, Caleb? I guess that we'll set that up as the new poll question.
I can't put it on him because I didn't realize how bad Tennessee would be. I didn't know their tackles would get hurt, and I also didn't know they'd be this bad at tackle behind John Campbell and Lance Hurd. And I didn't know that they wouldn't need him as much in certain games. All those things combined, he's underwhelmed my expectations at this point. But guys, I'm going down with the ship. And Jimmy, Vegas knows something, because you're right. They're keeping Nico right now at the 4th best odds to win the Heisman, even with the underwhelming start. I could see maybe my mind is going to, not personality wise, but 2012 Johnny Manziel. I think you guys forget that Johnny Manziel wasn't that good the first month at Texas A&M. He was very much a late bloomer. And then out of the blue, October came and he goes off, and then he beats Alabama, who Nico still plays, and he goes and wins the Heisman. And that was his first year starting. There's a few others like that are late bloomers. And I'm thinking, okay, they got to buy. Nico's going to come back at Arkansas. And Jimmy, you said that they're going to start looking like the 2022 offense. So I'm sticking with my guns.
Jimmy, go ahead, Jimmy.
No, I was just going to say, Vegas doesn't always know something. Every week, they misfire on more than half of their projections on a point spread. Yeah. More than half the time. Just chart it. So all this stuff about, they always know something. Notre Dame was favored over Northern Illinois. Auburn was favored over Arkansas. I mean, it's every week they are way off on their projections. Georgia was favored by over 20 points against Kentucky. So I don't subscribe to Vegas knows something.
Yeah, and their goal is, let's face it, the line and these odds are pretty much a poll to make everything 50-50, so they make the juice. They make the 10%. But it has to be a projection on how you think the game is going to go, right?
It's the same thing. You're trying to get 50-50 bets, so you're projecting how the game's going to go so that you're casting doubt on people about which side to go.
Yes and no. I would say this. If Tennessee played, for instance, Northern Illinois, and Northern Illinois is pretty good, but I think there would be so many bets placed on Tennessee because it's a bigger fan base that it could move the line a little bit.
Well, and I'm not just talking about Tennessee.
Okay.
I'm talking about all games across college football, because I charted this for a number of years because I kept hearing this. And the first week I charted it, Vegas got it right, 12 out of 34. They were 12 and 22. The next week it was 15 and 28. So anyway, I don't want to get off on that too much, but I'm not a big fan of people saying Vegas always gets it right, because they don't. Anyway.
I agree. Jimmy, great stuff. We certainly appreciate it. Where all can we follow your work as you're, I guess, retired, but not really, kind of, sort of?
I've made a F in retirement, but you can find me on Off the Hook Sports. We're writing game after recap columns, also with the podcast. We're doing podcasts where we're interviewing people that you can find on YouTube. Our most recent one is Randy Sanders. And we had Tommy Went before that. We've had a number of Heath Schuler, Sterling Hinton. We've had a number of folks who we've interviewed. And we've had about 2 million views on YouTube so far. So we're building some momentum. We like where we are. My next target, I hadn't even called him yet. I'm trying to get Robert Peace. I think he'd be a good interview because he almost went to Arkansas. Arkansas was one of his finalists along with Tennessee and Texas. So that's where you can find us. And I've enjoyed doing these interviews. They're long form interviews, but it's been fun to catch up with some folks.
Nice. Thank you, Jimmy. I certainly appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good day.
Jimmy Hyams, nice
Have a
enough
good one,
to join us. And Caleb, the question that I have on the YouTube poll question is what?
The YouTube poll question from one David Hooker. It's Davis?
Yes.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry, I'm trying to pull it up now.
And that's a huge pet peeve, but that's okay.
I would like to formally apologize to Dave Hooker.
All right.
Okay, so anyways, the poll question is, how has Nico played compared to your preseason expectations? 70% say met them, 27% underwhelmed, 3% say overwhelmed.
Yep. It's it depends on your preseason expectations. You said underwhelmed earlier.
I said underwhelmed, but not his fault. Does that make sense? It's I think there's a lot of we talked about this. I did not know the tackles were that bad beyond John Campbell and Lance Hurd. I thought there was a drop off and that was a concern, but that wasn't just a drop off. That was oh my gosh, there's you might as well put walk-ons out there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Lance Hurd, and I'm just going to kind of set the record straight here in a little bit. But I think it's met them, and that's the leader at 70% in the clubhouse. I think he will be. I've said all along that I thought he would be a realistic Heisman candidate into November. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to New York, but I think he will be in my mind when I fill out my ballot. So given those expectations, Caleb, in my mind, nothing has changed. And I think he showed a level of maturity that I wouldn't expect out of most guys as young as he is.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's actually shown a very big level of maturity. The opportunities haven't been there to make the plays he wants to make, but it's not like he's tried to force him because of that. He's still gone about running the offense. Now, again, you could then question, does he have enough moxie? Is that a sign that he doesn't have the moxie needed to be a quarterback in big moments? I don't think that's the case. We'll just have to wait and see. But again, he's shown a level of patience and a level of physical toughness. Because he got hit quite a good bit.
Okay, let's change the poll question if we can. Because you used a word that I love, moxie. Okay, and I think he has a ton of moxie, and I think Tyler Bray, just picking him out and his attitude, I think he'd be upset after the Oklahoma game for not taking more shots, and he'd be like, there's a difference between Nico being, yes, we won, and I don't really care about my stats. And I think Tyler Bray would be more along the lines of, yeah, we won, but man, I only threw for 200 yards. So I want to use moxie, and then arm mobility, accuracy. You decide what are the other three.
What is Nico's best asset, basically?
Yes, because I think it is moxie, and I think that's a good thing. The poll question will be brought to you by Hound Dogs. Hound Dogs of Knoxville is absolutely fantastic. They have all the licensed products you need, and you can order online. If we can drop that in the poll in the YouTube chat, I would greatly appreciate it. If you stop by, tell them that Dave Hooker at Off the Hook Sports said hello, and we'll get that poll question set. So what did you decide to go with, Caleb?
Okay, so his best asset, moxie, mobility, accuracy, arm strength.
Okay. Vote on that because it's National Comic Book Day as well. And we might talk about your favorite comic book hero in the poll question. It gives us an opportunity to do that because I'm a big nerd. All right. I got to tell you about Medicare Misty. We love her. Why? Because Medicare Misty is licensed in over 40 states. So wherever you're watching this, you can take care of your Medicare needs almost certainly. And there's no charge. Medicare Misty.
I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All right, Medicare Misty, nice enough to bring us the poll question, which is what, Caleb? Calhoun?
All right, so Nico's best asset is moxie, mobility, accuracy, and arm strength. 42% say moxie. That's leading the way now by plurality.
Let's let the thing settle a little bit and see where it goes. Did you include accuracy as one of those?
Yeah, which I think is his best asset. Anybody who's Nico's accuracy is by far his best asset to me.
It's like a laser, as they used to say on Dr. Evil. You probably don't remember that, do you?
Are you kidding me? I was a huge Austin Powers fan. Matter of fact, I loved Austin Powers before I ever knew about James Bond movies. So I watched Austin Powers movies, and then I went back and watched James Bond movies. And because Austin Powers makes fun of how stupid James Bond movies are, I can't enjoy James Bond movies, old ones, because I'm like, oh, this is just everything Austin Powers made fun of for being stupid.
Okay, the ones during the 80s were stupid with Roger Moore, but the early ones with Sean Connery and some of the Pierce Brosnans were good. And let's put that on the poll question here in a little bit. Who is the best James Bond? But I'll tell you that Daniel Craig was pretty darn good. Have you seen those trio movies?
I saw Skyfall.
Okay. I think you saw the very worst one. I mean, by far. They changed directors in the middle of that movie. So please don't use that as your judgment base. I mean, they literally changed directors and it was a complete fiasco. I think Son's a film major.
I'm just going to say it, though. Batman and Robin is less cheesy than old James Bond movies.
The 80s. Go back and watch Dr. No. I mean, that's strong stuff. That's Sean Connery. Oh, give him a
didn't he one time say sometimes you got to give women a big slap?
Probably. That was a long time ago. The 2022 Vols versus the 2024 Vols. It's a column on offthehooksports.com. It's a topic up next. And we'll break it down position by position. Why, in my opinion, the 2024 Vols would beat the 2022 Vols by at least double digits. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Give me 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang convertible, $24,550. 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, $29,789. 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, $26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, with Caleb Calhoun, welcome back. The poll question. Caleb, I want the results on that. as first I want to remind all of those out there, we're brought to you in part by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Listen to me for a moment. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. A lot of stuff at convenience stores and more, but these are the highest standards. That's Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. HOOKED for 10% off. Poll question is, Caleb?
So the poll question is, what is Nico Iamaleava's best asset? Moxie, mobility, accuracy, and arm strength. Accuracy has taken the lead at 46%. Moxie's at 38%. And the mobility and arm strength both tied for 8%.
That's hot.
Okay, which would you rather have in order with Nico? If you're building a quarterback and I tell you you have these traits, what do you want first and foremost?
Oh, I want accuracy. I think accuracy is always the most important trait in a quarterback. I think that it can make up for so many other issues, but Moxie is a close second because you got to have the right attitude and mental makeup to play quarterback. But for arm strength and mobility, those are less important because those are, to me, there's a baseline you have to hit, and after the baseline, it doesn't really matter, honestly.
Agree.
So
yeah, I especially agree with arm strength. I agree with what you said in accuracy. I would probably put Moxie slightly above accuracy because of what happened at Oklahoma. Now, the ball was taken out of his hands to some extent, and I'm not talking about the strip sacks. I'm talking about Josh Heupel's decisions. However, he never got frustrated, and he was cool, calm, and collected after both of those fumbles. How many of Tennessee's previous quarterbacks would have bleeped the bed when things went south on the road, Caleb? A lot of them.
Oh, a lot of them. I mean, that's actually, it's funny that we talk about Tyler Bray. Tyler Bray put up tons of stats, but man, the minute things went against the offense at all, like he just, everybody shut down. And that was, that always happened with him.
And if you haven't had an opportunity to watch the Vol Report with Cooper Mays, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com, Integrity Matters, 50 years in East Tennessee, then you need to do so because he said, I want to say quote, but I'm not 110%, but paraphrasing, he's our leader. He's the quarterback. That's what he's supposed to do. And he's doing that. And for those that are knocking Nico,
they're like, that is total bullshit.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And I will tell you this, that if you want to knock Josh Heupel's play calling, let's say that's fair game. Okay. But if you want to knock Nico for the way he played, I don't get it. Maybe your expectations were too high, but let's go ahead and dig into our next topic, which will include Nico as it is. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
This is where Caleb sets me straight when I may go astray. So Tennessee's team this season would beat the 2022 team by double digits, and I have no doubt in my mind. Caleb Calhoun, am I right or wrong? And we'll look at it position by position as you can read about it on offthehooksports.com. But Caleb, we'll go through it, and I will absolutely convince you if you don't believe me, or convince everybody else if they think I'm crazy.
I think they would win. I don't think they would win by double digits. I think that offense is for 2022 is just too potent and they'd be able to hang. But I do think they would win. I do think this team would win. And I think it would be a massive shootout.
Okay. I do too. I agree with you on the latter part. Okay. So the poll question is this: Tennessee's team this season would beat the 2022 team. Yes or no? So if you can go ahead and put that on the poll, Caleb, I would greatly appreciate that. And then we're going to break down position by position why I think that Tennessee would win. And again, you can check it out on offthehooksports.com, offthehooksports.com. We certainly hope you check that out. It's all free. So support our sponsors. You don't have to worry about pop-up ads and all that crazy stuff, and you get great coverage of the Vols and opinions that matter. All right, step by step. I'm going Tennessee's defensive line. We're going to look at each single position. Tennessee's defensive line is better in 2024. I don't think there's really any doubt about that, correct?
Yeah, and by the way, the defensive line in 2022 wasn't bad. That was actually a strength of the defense, but it's better in 2024.
Yep. You had Byron Young, of course, and you had Tyler Barron, who we thought was good, but they basically ran him off. So I think that
he's playing well, by the way, at Miami. Playing really well.
Yep. But I wonder where he would be in this lineup, because now we know Dominique Bailey's pretty good and we know other guys are good. So I mean, he would play, but would he play as much as he wants to? I don't know. Defensive backs. It's not, excuse me. That's my bad. I don't think it's going out on a limb to say they're much better now.
Significantly better. If for any other reason, then they have a lockdown corner, which they didn't have in 2022. I'm not sure how the rest of the secondary shakes out compared to each other, because honestly, this secondary hasn't had to be that good because of how amazing the front has been. But I'll say that if Jermod McCoy were on that team in 2022, they are at the very least beating South Carolina.
Okay. I think Jermod McCoy, I still think they're untested, but I think Jermod McCoy is reason enough to say they're better. And certainly statistically, that would prove that. I don't think it's close. Linebackers, Keenan Pili and Arian Carter, not to mention you have depth, Jeremiah Thielander, you have Caleb Perry, and I think Edwin Spillman may be a star at some point, but he's just a freshman. In 2022, you had Jawan Mitchell and Aaron Beasley. You had Jeremy Banks, who was supposed to be a big-time playmaker, but was a big-time troublemaker instead. I don't think this one's close. I'm taking Tennessee's linebackers this year.
Yeah. Yes. Linebackers are significantly better. And Will West finally said what I've been saying, which is I thought I was alone not being high on Beasley. And then there was all this hype of him going into last year, and he didn't really live up to it. He just wasn't an SEC linebacker, guys. And Jeremy Banks was a cancer on top of the fact that he was a one-dimensional linebacker. The linebackers this year are it's night and day. They're leaps and bounds better at linebacker, guys.
Okay, let's get to the offense. I know everybody wants to talk about that. So I want to turn to the offense. What is the poll question again? Can you reset that one, my friend?
Would this year's Tennessee team beat the 2022 Vols? Yes, 81%. No, 19%.
Okay. All right. To the offense, brought to you by Quality Tire Pro. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work covered by nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com. Qualitytirepros.com. I tell Bo that Dave and Off the Hook Sports said, hey, Bo. All right. As far as the offense, now we're going to get to quarterback. Don't worry. But let's start with the offensive line. And they had Darnell Wright. Tennessee has a big problem this year at offensive tackle and perhaps elsewhere if anybody gets injured. So 2022 was a better offensive line. It's tough to make the argument otherwise after what we saw on Saturday against Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm actually going to say the offensive line was significantly better in 2022. Darnell Wright is such an upgrade over John Campbell or Dane Davis at right tackle, and that's all due respect to them. And on the left side, when you had Gerald Mincy and Jeremiah Crawford alternating, as of this moment, that was more proven than Lance Hurd.
I agree. That's fair. And we're going to get to what's happening with Hurd here in a little bit. Hit like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If you want to send a super chat, it goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. That's Caleb's 3-month-old little boy. All right. Receivers 2024. Now, had Cedric Tillman not gotten hurt early in 2022 and really never came back, he tried. Maybe there's an argument there. Brew McCoy stepped in his place, proved to be a good player. Other than that, you had White. Other than that, you had, of course, Jalen Hyatt, who won the Biletnikoff Award. and you had Squirrel White, and you had a little bit of Ramel Keaton. But I know this sounds insane, and you can call me out if you want to, but I would take these group of receivers over the 2022 receivers. And I'm well aware that Jalen Hyatt won a Biletnikoff Award as the nation's top receiver. So that sounds insano. I know. I'm curious because Caleb and I don't hash this stuff out before the show. We like to have our fresh opinions. I could see you going either direction on this, Caleb.
You know, I was going to maybe disagree with you, but you know what's got me closer to your side? Have y'all seen Jalen Hyatt in the NFL this year? Nobody's throwing his way. The Giants aren't even trying to work him into the offense right now. And you can complain about that, but it's something we thought from the start that maybe he was just a system player. And the reason I'm still going to lean towards 2022 is here's why. I think the ability of these receivers, Dave, are better, but so much of playing receivers is the rapport with the quarterback. And I think the receivers in 2022 had a deep rapport with Hendon Hooker. So, for instance, that interception that Nico Iamaleava threw that we blame on Brew McCoy because it looks like Brew McCoy cut his route the wrong way from what Nico Iamaleava thought Brew McCoy was running. None of the receivers were doing that in 2022 with Hendon Hooker. They were all on the same page. I don't know if what I'm saying is more a quarterback thing than a receiver thing, but
let's address that play for a second, because we talked to Jacob Warren on the Warren Report, brought to you by Peak IV Hydration. We do that every Monday, and he hinted that Brew let up a little bit. And I think that was the case. So if we want to play the blame game, and Jacob didn't want to do that, but we can. To me, that's 70% on Brew, about 30% on Nico for putting it into coverage in the first place. Is that fair?
I mean, if what Jacob said is true, it's to me 0% on Nico. He thought Brew was going to run a certain route, and Brew ran the other route where he let up. And
okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The reason I think that it's some of Nico's fault is because he said after the game, I learned versus NC State not to put it into coverage.
Okay. That's fair. But either way, it seems the receivers are not. Seems like Nico and the receivers aren't always on the same page right now, at least through the first month. Whereas with Hendon Hooker, I mean, Dave, did you ever see a receiver out of position? They were on the same page with Hooker the entire year. I don't think I've ever seen a collective group more on the same page with their quarterback.
No,
honestly.
I'm all with you there. I'm completely with you. All right, so the next position, again, you can read about this on Off the Hook Sports. Running back, you have to go 2022, right? Jabari Small, Jalen Wright, Dylan Sampson. You still have Sampson. You have Deshaun Bishop, who has exceeded expectations, in my opinion, but I don't know who the third guy is. And out of the group, Jalen Wright is the most accomplished. Dylan Sampson may change that this season, but I like the power of Jalen Wright and having variety with Dylan Sampson. Now I feel like they just have one.
Yeah, I think that I think the running back position as a collective was definitely better in 2022. Now, remember, September of 2022 versus September of 2022, now we may say it's about even because Jalen Wright was banged up during that time. And so really you were just Jabari Small versus Dylan Sampson.
And because of that, had a little fumbling issue. So
yes.
that can flip a game too. So, I mean, when you're not able to go out in preseason and get hit, you're more apt to fumble in games. And that happened when they started having full contact. Now, here's the difficult one. Quarterback. Are you talking Hendon Hooker or are you talking Nico? So, Caleb, I know you've made some broad predictions, but I want you to think about it for a moment as I remind people that portions of the program are brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Daily updates. The link is right below. You'll want to follow them. Caleb, better quarterback situation is Hendon Hooker with more experience in 2022 or Nico right now?
It's still Nico right now, guys. I'm sorry. Nico makes some throws that Hendon Hooker couldn't make. Now, if you want to say who in September were you taking, you could maybe go Hendon Hooker because now I've come around to the idea, Dave, that Pittsburgh game, maybe Tennessee's not beating Pittsburgh with Nico because is it fair to say we're underselling Hendon Hooker's leadership? to a degree. I mean, nobody really like Hendon Hooker is one of the best leaders Tennessee's had since the 98 national title team. I think that's safe to say.
No, I would agree with that, but let's not discount Nico's leadership, which I'm told over and over is incredible, but it's for a younger player. He's probably never going to be a rah-rah guy, but you would have said, I think, the same thing about Hendon Hooker when he was young. I mean, that's something.
Well, that's what I mean. This isn't, we're talking about a 6th-year senior in Hendon Hooker. Everybody followed him, and versus a redshirt freshman in Nico Iamaleava, who is trying to find his footing. I'm not blaming Nico for this at all. I'm just saying at the end of the day, I just talked about the rapport with the quarterback and the receivers and players being on the wrong routes. Part of that is the receivers weren't going to miss those things with Hendon Hooker. They weren't going to get those things wrong. And so I think that's part of that is because of Hendon Hooker's leadership. So I think that you will see. So I think that does make it close. But guys, if you just use your eyes, just use the eye test. Nico makes better throws than Hendon Hooker. He's actually deceptively as mobile as Hendon Hooker because he takes long strides when he runs. Do you notice that? And yeah. So when you put those two things together, guys, as far as an actual quarterback, Nico's better. And I love Hendon Hooker, but Nico's a better quarterback.
Now, I want to be clear. You're talking about heading into October of 2022 to 2024. In other words, if Hendon Hooker, the NFL and the NCAA gave him a special exemption and he was suddenly on the team, you're telling me that Josh Heupel would play Nico over Hendon Hooker?
Yes.
I think you're right. I wanted to argue, but I think you're right. I think the Joe Milton experiment and year to let Nico grow worked for this year, but I think he's ready to branch off with a more talented quarterback.
I agree. And I know it hasn't shown yet, and people who have watched both would totally. I understand why you would side with Hooker to this point, but I'm sorry, Nico has made some throws that Hendon Hooker just couldn't make. It seems so simple, but Dave, that touchdown pass to Dante Thornton, Hooker would not have put it on the money the way Nico did right there over the middle.
I tend to agree with that. I think he's more accurate, especially in the intermediate throws. Now, he's more accurate all over the field than Joe Milton, but if we really want to nitpick, I think the two are equally as accurate downfield.
They are.
But I think that 20 in, that you would take Nico if the game is throw the ball through the old tire hanging on the tree.
Right, exactly. And Nico, he may be a little more accurate downfield too. Hooker every now and then missed the downfield throw. And now Nico has too.
I will say this. I had an NFL scout tell me that he had elite deep touch, like best in the country.
Oh, he does, but so does Nico.
Okay. I'm not ready to go that far with you, but we'll see. All right. This day in Tennessee sports history is now, and it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. banksandjones.com. This day in Tennessee sports history in 30 seconds. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. All right, this day in Tennessee sports history, and then we're going to talk about Lance Hurd. I'm hopefully going to set the record straight in a moment because there's some really odd, soft reporting going on out there that I'm not going to name names, but it's kind of gotten under my skin. All right, Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history.
On this day 25 years ago, Bobby Graham made the deep catch to set up Tennessee's 17-16 win over Memphis, in which point T. Martin found Cedric Wilson for the actual game-winning touchdown. Tennessee had just lost to Florida. they had been upset by Memphis 3 years before. So there was this narrative that they were going out for revenge and they wanted revenge. They come out wearing all orange. It was the first time in years that they had worn all orange. And in one of the ugliest games I think I've ever seen them play as 35-point favorites, they win the game 17-16.
Why did they have to throw the ball to Bobby Graham? I'm trying to remember. Were there other receivers hurt? Because that's the one time where every single person, I was in the press box, and every single person said, "Who's that?" And as a beat reporter, 1 to 85 on the roster. So for us all, me, Mike Griffith, the Brent Hubs of the world, everybody was like, "Who's that?" And I mean, I can't remember why he was the guy that had to make that play. I don't even remember who else was on that team. Somebody must have gotten hurt.
No, what had happened was Memphis had that year, believe it or not, Dave, 4 NFL defensive backs in their secondary, and they had the best defense of like non-BCS teams by far. If just for context, they lost to Ole Miss 3-0. They lost to Mississippi State 13-10. So they were just playing all these SEC teams really, really, really close constantly. And I think what Tennessee realized at the very, very end was if they spread the field, went 5 wide and threw Bobby Graham or somebody like that in there, that's where the lack of depth would show, and Memphis wouldn't be able to cover somebody like him. So that's what they did.
Still, though, can you Google the receivers that were on that team? Somebody had it. And it'll jog my memory.
Cedric Wilson was the go-to receiver, who's from Memphis, funny enough. And then the number 2 receiver would have been Cedric.
Let's tease it through. Do you know who it is off the top of your head? Somebody had to get hurt, and it'll jog my memory. Plus, I'm going to set things straight on the Lance Hurd situation. And 2 minutes, Off the Hook Sports. Hit the like and subscribe button. Turn the notifications on as we continue to add more programming. The Vol Report with Cooper Mays live now. Hang tight. We're going to talk about the one thing that everybody seemingly is scared to talk about. And that's a Lance Hurd situation. I'll give you some info that you might not be aware of. 2 minutes, Off the Hook Sports.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 2025 Ford Explorer 4x4 Active, $46,529. 24 Ford Big Bend Bronco 4-door, $40,949. 24 Ford F-150 Super Crew 4x4 STX, $46,214.
Local you trust, performance you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
If all the natural beauty around here looks a little fuzzy to you, you may want to consider LASIK vision correction from the Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Now with 2 Sevierville locations to serve you, East Tennessee's best eye care is more convenient than ever.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. The Dave Hooker.
All right, with Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Caleb playing hurt today. We appreciate that as he's a little under the weather. Hit like and subscribe if you like Caleb's new haircut, which looks darn fancy. Reminds me that I need one. The poll question that is up, Caleb, is what?
The poll question that is up is Nico Iamaleava is blank than Hendon Hooker right now. Better 20%, worse 30%, about the same 50%.
All right. Give me a poll question for Lance Hurd. And I want to discuss this on the air. And it's however you want to phrase it. I believe in Lance Hurd. I'm concerned about Lance Hurd because I was told he got in the realm of $1 million to be a Vol. And a lot of people thought that he would play against Oklahoma. He did not even make the trip. So what's a poll question? And then I'm going to tell you what's going on there.
How do you feel about Lance Hurd? Lance Hurd. I believe in him. He's a potential superstar. And then I'm concerned. Is that fair?
Yep. I like that. Okay. So we discussed yesterday that Lance Hurd could be potentially renegotiating his NIL deal because he realizes how much that he is needed for Tennessee's football team. He had the bum ankle last week, practiced. A lot of people thought he would play. That is total and utter nonsense based off a couple of different sources that I've talked to. So take that off the board. He is not looking for more money in the middle of the season, as some people have hinted at. And I'm going to go ahead and say shame on some Knoxville media. I'm not calling anybody out specifically. And I don't even think you maybe meant it intentionally. But when somebody asks a question on a message board and you don't answer it, and you usually do answer it, whatever question it might be about Tennessee's football team, it can leave the implication that Lance Hurd has done something wrong. Okay. Would you agree with that, Caleb, that there's ways to manipulate things, especially on a message board, to make things look one way or another, right?
Yeah, and it's a matter of fact, and it's one of the worst things that people do in this media sphere is they gaslight you to pretend that they're not floating something, and then they float something like, I'm just asking questions. It's like, no, you're trying to lead people to think a certain way. I mean, I see that all the time in politics where people will drop a horrible conspiracy theory that has no bearing in fact, and be like, I'm not saying this is true, I'm just asking questions. And it's like, well, okay, but stand on it then. Be honest about how you feel about it.
No. Okay. And here's how I feel about it. Do I think an agent or representation has gotten involved? Yes, I do, based off who I've talked to. However, I don't think that's a bad thing. And let me give you a story before you want to throw Lance Hurd under the bus. Do you remember a linebacker? I know you will. You remember everybody, Caleb. Jason Mitchell.
Oh, yeah. I remember him.
Okay. Let me tell you a story about Jason Mitchell. Because as a reporter, the last thing you ever want to do is get involved with a team, right? I mean, you don't want to affect the outcome whatsoever. So when Jason Mitchell came in front of the media and said, I'm going to play on Saturday after verifying that he had a torn ACL, is the one time that I wanted to pull a player aside and say, dude, you're being a great guy. I understand that. They don't have depth at linebacker, but don't do this to yourself. Okay, Jason Mitchell's knee was so shredded by the end of his final year at Tennessee because he played on a torn ACL. He got no chance to play in the NFL. You can check it. If he did play some, he played very little. His knee was garbage, even if he had the mobility that he once had. And I would argue right now that Jason Mitchell's a lot closer to Kevin Burnett than you think when he was at his prime. But after he got hurt, Tennessee's coaches allowed him to play. allowed him to play. Now, he doesn't have any NIL money. He's not a millionaire right now. He missed out on his shot because he was allowed to play. And the notion that came from that coaching staff was, well, if he wants to go out there and do it, that's up to him. No, you don't allow that guy to play because he might, theoretically affect a game by a couple of points at best. By the way, he was hobbled around, and his backup, whoever it was at the time, Caleb, you might remember, at 100% would have been a better option. I can't remember his name. Nevertheless.
Maybe Jerron Mayo that year? 05?
Why don't you Google that and check? So, listen, we hear this term agent, and we all get scared, and we all get nervous that college football is changing massively. And it is and has. But what if there's a situation in which the parent steps up? That is technically a representation, and somebody should have done that in Jason Mitchell's case. That's representation. So what is wrong if an agent did get involved and said, listen, Lance, you've got a long time to play. One of these ankle sprains can last the whole year and affect what you put on tape. Now, he's not a year from playing in the NFL, so feel free to pick apart that argument, if you will. If he's a senior, it would maybe be a little bit different. But I understand not sending him out there and somebody in his camp saying he shouldn't go out there. Caleb, there's too much money at stake. And there's the young man's health. Now, the flip side is he's gotten his $1 million, which is what I was told. And he's gotten his $1 million, and he should buck up and play. Well, Caleb, I mean, if you are incredibly, I mean, I know you're under the weather today, but if you're hurt and like physically devastated, if your fingers are broke, nobody's going to make you write anything at Off the Hook Sports. So I'm very frustrated by some media out there that I believe know more and know what I know and don't want to report that because it could look like Tennessee's coaching staff is pushing Lance Hurd to get back on the field too soon. And who does that remind you of? I thought that might be the situation with Cooper Mace. Now you're saying, oh, you talked to Cooper on the ball report. No, he's never once told me that, hand to God, not once. And I specifically didn't ask him because I didn't want to know. But I do believe that they wanted him back sooner than his family thought he should be back. So, Caleb, that's the coach's job, is to get the best players on the field. And Josh Heupel loves his players, but he also probably despises Oklahoma for what happened there. And you're telling me if it's 50-50 or even 51% he shouldn't play, 49% he should, that Josh Heupel wouldn't say, encourage him to play? Are you telling me that's not at all possible? That does not make Josh Heupel a bad guy.
No. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. My diatribe will continue, but
I want to clear this up for. So what you're saying is there was no like demanding more NIL. There was just Lance Hurd was banged up, and he didn't want to go because he didn't want to further injuring himself.
Yes, and some representation has gotten involved, but I don't care if that's somebody paid or a parent. I've seen situations where parents got more in the way than an agent ever will. I mean, a mom seeing her little son knocked around and playing injured, you don't think she's more dangerous to team culture than an agent? I'll go ahead and tell you. It's the
or a dad who thinks their son should be playing more than he is, or a mom who thinks her son should be playing more than he is. Honestly, yes. We know that. A mom who trashes every other player in the position group room with that one player, Jalen Hurd. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to add this. I'm with you. I see nothing wrong with it. Josh Heupel's going to look out for what he's got to do. Lance Hurd's going to look out for what he's got to do. And also, I think for this, here's the other part of this. Now, Tennessee got by but I think Josh Heupel was really worried about the matchup issue with Oklahoma. So he probably felt that's the type of game where it's worth playing if you're 50%, and then you can rest after. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And now I will say that by getting out of that game with him not playing, I'm going to say this, Dave. Lance Hurd did Josh Heupel and Tennessee a favor. Tennessee needs him 100% against Alabama and Georgia. Don't you want him to get fully healthy so he can go block for Nico against those two teams?
Well, and I want to be very clear because that was brought up on the message board. That could well be the case. But my point is, they could have sat him and not took him on the trip and lied to subscription-based media that like to cover up for missteps along the way, or maybe him misdiagnosing Lance Hurd, or maybe they think he should have played. So the lack of clarity is the problem here. I'm not accusing whatsoever Josh Heupel of saying that, hey, Lance Hurd has got to play on Saturday. This is my alma mater. This is Oklahoma. But every coach wants every guy that's on the cusp of being healthy to play. I doubt there was a conversation at all that, this is a big game. You got to get out there. In fact, the conversation may have been, let's rest you this week. Then you get a bye week and you're good. And with a high ankle sprain, that may have been the case. Those for a big guy, he will not be over the high ankle sprain for the rest of the year. I don't care if he takes a month off. For big guys, Caleb, it just doesn't happen. So he benefits Tennessee long-term by not playing. And I'm dismayed, very dismayed by some people that have hinted that maybe he just wants more money or that the agent being involved is a bad thing. Go ask Jason Mitchell if he would have liked an agent during his playing days, because he probably would have had a career in the NFL.
Yeah, and it's about time that college players could get agents. They had that stupid rule where if you had representation, you were automatically ineligible. For how long did they have that rule? I mean, Dante Stallworth gets an agent for like 1 day, wants to come back, and the NCAA says he can't come back. Did that happen in 2000?
Or he has to sit 4 games, I think was the penalty. And so he decided to go on. That whole thing was stupid. And we just associate the term agent with being a bad thing. If this guy's looking out for Lance Hurd's best intentions, what's more important? Be honest and look into your heart. A 19-year-old's health or the Tennessee-Oklahoma game?
Yeah, and it's obviously the 19-year-old's health. And by the way, I got news for you Tennessee fans, and I got news for you college football fans everywhere. Root for your college. You should love it. Cheer. It's all fun. It's all great. I mean, it's an epic thing to be a part of. These kids play college football primarily to think about their future. And
nowadays, especially,
yeah. But that was largely a culture. You don't think most of the 98 team was thinking, how am I going to get to the NFL? Of course they were, because everybody thinks that way and that's playing college ball. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you still can't have good team chemistry, a great team overall, great coaching, all of that. But guys, players are, I'm sorry, college football is always going to be a sport where you're less willing to sacrifice your body than the NFL, because the NFL is the prize overall. And by the way, you see players in the NFL do this. How often do NFL players, Dave, on teams shut themselves down if they're on a contract year and they're a little banged up? They do it all the time.
Yep. I'm going to back Lance Hurd on this one. Err on the side of not playing, or Josh Heupel, who could have very well said, Lance, you don't need to be playing because Georgia and Alabama are coming up. I don't know. I'll tell you that part. I don't know. I'm not just going to leave it on a message board for you to guess. I'm going to tell you I don't know that part. What I know is that he wasn't trying to go after more NIL money, as some people have hinted. That to me it besmirches his character. Listen, I'll tell you how this thing works itself out. If his teammates believe that he's sitting unnecessarily, then he will lose his credibility with his teammates. And then at that point, maybe he doesn't play because his teammates don't like him. That's how the 98 team was. They would go up and say, this dude's dogging it, don't play him. and the coaching staff wouldn't play him. So I think the coaching staff believes in their leaders and would do that here as well.
Yeah, wasn't there a running back that was talking a lot of trash, and then Al Wilson purposely laid him out because he was sick of
Travis Kozart.
That was his name? Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Am I right there? I think I'm right. Maybe somebody can correct me on the message board. He was like the most highly rated running back in the history of man.
And Al Wilson purposely came around and wanted to knock him out.
Was it Brian Darden? Yes, it was
Maybe
Brian.
it was Brian Darden.
Okay.
That name sounds familiar.
I'll maybe text Jimmy during the break on that. But that's where I am with the Lance Hurd situation. And I think you need to back the young man. This is the time to show a young man love. It's not when he's Jalen Hyatt streaking down the field and scoring 15,000 touchdowns and beating Alabama. That's the easy time. The hard time for Lance Hurd is right now. Do you think he showed up to Tennessee after getting beaten out by 2 offensive tackles at LSU? And you think he showed up thinking, I'm going to sit the bench my first year?
Yeah, no, he obviously didn't think that. And he knows that and guys, remember this, you bring this up, Dave, he can't afford to shut himself down because his college tape is going to be what gets him to the NFL. He's not some high school prospect that you see. How many high school prospects have you seen, Dave, in football? It's like they were 5 stars and you're like, oh, they're just going to have to bide their time in college for 3 years because they're NFL stars. They're going to be NFL stars. You don't think that until you see their college play, right? It's not like basketball.
No, it's true. Every high school player with 3 stars next to their name thinks they're going to the NFL and they're going to start immediately.
And have you ever seen one that kid's an NFL player coming out of high school? I don't think I've ever seen one.
Have I ever seen a player that could skip college? Is that what you're asking me?
No, that not necessarily skip, but you knew that they were just biding their time. You knew they would just be biding their time in college because they were going to be that good once they get to the pros.
Alvin Kamara.
Okay, I could see that. But
he never griped. He never griped. Why? Because he perhaps had less tread on his tire than some other people. I don't know how much he played in junior college, but he didn't care to play second fiddle. He was all smiles. It didn't bother him at all. And he played second fiddle to Jalen Hurd, I believe, because Jalen Hurd got some financial inducement to come to Tennessee, and he would flip on Butch Jones at the time. But Alvin Kamara was fine. He was fine with it.
But the point being, that's way less common in football than basketball, right? With a player like that.
Yes.
Like you have to put on college tape to get drafted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The stat of the day. We're going to get some Lane Kiffin takes a shot at Hugh Freeze, but the stat of the day is now. First, update us on our poll question that's about Lance Hurd, if you don't mind, Caleb.
On our poll question on Lance Hurd, what are your thoughts? Pulling it up now. Sorry, had a bit of a laptop issue for a second. What are your thoughts on Lance Hurd? Do you believe in him? He's a potential superstar, or you're concerned? 54%, Dave, say they're concerned.
Okay, well, I'm concerned too about his ankle, not his attitude. I don't know to be concerned about that. And I will go ahead and tell you guys, he's not a fast twitch guy. He's not a superstar. He's a big body. Think Michael Munoz, not Darnell Wright. The UPS store, Hardin Valley, here to help individuals and small businesses by offering a wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated and conveniently located at 10629 Hardin Valley Road. The link is right below the UPS store, Hardin Valley, proud supporters of the Vols. Caleb, what is the stat of the day?
Well, I think you had the stat of the day today, Dave, because you sent it to me this morning. You want me to read it out for you?
Let's do it.
That's hot.
All right.
It goes back to 2022 versus 2024. In 2022, guys, Tennessee's defense was 92nd in yards allowed per game, allowing 405. Where are they now? I'm sure you know.
I do. Go ahead.
Guys, where do y'all think they are on the message board?
Okay, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. So go ahead and share that with us.
They are number 1 in the nation, allowing only 176 yards a game.
That's hot.
It is hot. How impressive is that, Caleb, for this defense? And it will lead us into a topic that I was bound to get to eventually. It's been a big show with Jimmy Hyams, but how does that number strike you, sir?
I mean, that number was really striking. Josh Heupel having a number one offense is, I think, the scariest thing in the world for most teams in college football. And because, by the way, the number one scoring defense. Because, by the way, the offense, they're gonna get better, guys. They were already averaging, like, they already led the nation in points per game too up until the Oklahoma game, and so they just haven't really had to do anything yet. But that's going to change very, very, very soon.
Agreed. Want to read about a 2026 edge rusher that Tennessee is in on? Well, we would highly suggest that you join Hooker's Corner. Hooker's Corner is your home for increased recruiting coverage, more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun, and also an opportunity to win great prizes. If you're a free member, you're eligible for our Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge, that you can win a Garmin if you're a free member of Hooker's Corner and you're also a subscriber of this channel. And a lot of you are. So hit that subscribe button now. In addition, if you just want to be a paid member and have more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun, you can read about a 2026 edge rusher that is all about the Vols. So check that out. We thank Stacey Oliver for that, who's keeping tabs on recruiting for us and doing a fantastic job. Hit like and subscribe now, as I want to change gears here slightly, because did I go too far on my Lance Hurd soapbox? That's what I would ask you.
No, I agree with you.
I like that. I didn't think you would, to be quite honest with you. So let's go ahead and get to 4 downs right now as we dive into something that has been a topic of discussion with several of you. 4 downs, and it's brought to you by our good friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They always have the affordable fire opals for game day jewelry, but they're fantastic jewelers from start to finish, and they can also work on your jewelry, and they do it right there in the office. 4 downs is now.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, here we go. And coming up here in just a little bit, we will talk about Lane Kiffin taking a shot at Hugh Freeze, because things are getting pretty ugly, and I kind of like that. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into 4 downs right now. And I want to share some thoughts from national media members concerning the University of Tennessee. So there are some that believe that Tennessee is already a national championship contender. There are others that don't. So I want to share with you some of those thoughts, and it's on offthehooksports.com. So first down, those that firmly believe Tennessee is a national championship contender right now. Cooper Mays, what should people do if they want to be a part of the program on a daily basis, weekdays at 10 a.m.?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thanks, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right, here is what John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel had to say. Yes, it's the deepest, most dominant defensive front in the country. Playmakers on offense, including an elite quarterback, but it must stay healthy on the offensive line. Ryan Brown hosted the next round. Yes, they are, but not because of their offense. They finally have a defense to match. While that offense may have struggled to travel in past seasons, the defense will travel. I actually thought Ryan, who was the last to get his line in, may have had the most insightful comment. Caleb, Tennessee can travel with the defense, whereas an offense can, especially that likes to throw the ball like Tennessee does, can get a little off kilter on the road from time to time.
You know, that's a huge point that I didn't even think about, because we've talked about Heupel on the road the last few years. I'm like, oh, it's an issue. Can he do what he needs to do on the road? Well, it's not like the offense really stepped it up on the road this time either. It's just this time the defense actually stepped it up on the road against Oklahoma. So that's the biggest one. You're right. That's when you're at your best, is when you're defense. I don't know how many offensive oriented teams are better on the road. That's a great point.
Yep, I agree. Okay, good job, Ryan Brown.
Cooper Mays here. second down.
Okay, here are a couple of people, in addition to John, that believe Tennessee can win a national championship this year. Paul Feinbaum, ESPN. Have you heard of him? Texted him with the question. He said, absolutely can win. Best UT has looked in a generation. Chuck Oliver, 680 The Fan in Atlanta, hosted the Chuck Oliver Show, which I've sub-hosted a couple times. 100%. Look at where the UT defense was just 2 seasons ago. The transformation of that unit is as big of an on-field story as there is in the game this year. Josh Pate, friend of the program, joined us last week. Quote, you need good quarterback culture play and the ability to be explosive on offense. You need a solid defense and overall team culture. Tennessee has all these things. Therefore, they are a contender to win a title. What do you make of those two comments from some nationally known guys?
Totally agree with all of them. And you're right. And the thing Josh Pate said, that's, I think, what people are forgetting is this defense is still where they are, but they still have the explosive plays in their back pocket. So that's not going anywhere. This isn't like 2005, where I don't think Tennessee had one play go over 40 yards in 2005 on offense. Dave, you probably remember that.
Yep. Okay. A couple of guys that are a little more pessimistic.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here, third down.
All right. Tyler Ivins of the Sports Animal, who I join on Wednesdays, so that'll be today, depending on when you're watching, said I had Tennessee 10-2 with the losses to Alabama and Georgia, reaching the first round of the playoffs at the beginning of the season. The Vols will go as far as their offensive line will take them. Great showing with no title. Thoughts on that before we get to Mike Griffith's take from Dog Nation and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution?
I agree with the offensive line part. So the question then does become, do you think the offensive line will be healthy or not as the season goes on? And that goes into the whole question of, would Tennessee rather play 2 games as 17-point favorites in the college football playoff or just play one as a pick 'em? If you're not deep, that becomes a bigger question.
True. I'm not a doctor, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So I'm going to say that Tennessee is going to struggle to be healthy if they've already got issues on the offensive line. However, we'll see what happens with John Campbell Jr. and Lance Hurd and what they're able to do. I will tell you this, that I'm not sold, but I'm half sold on Larry Johnson after going back and looking at the tape. You?
Look, he wasn't the problem on Saturday. I'll say that much.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you can go ahead and say it. It was Dane Davis was a problem on the left side, and again, Larry Johnson, if he was a problem, that doesn't speak to Larry Johnson's ability or Dane Davis' ability. It just speaks to the fact that they don't yet have the depth of a Georgia or Alabama in its prime. Fair?
No, I totally agree. That's a big problem too.
I think we're on 4th down, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here, 4th down.
Okay. There's one person who doesn't believe that Tennessee can win a title. Let's get to that. It's brought to you by Work Trucks with an X. If we can pull them up. Work Trucks, man, proud supporter of the Vols. All about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time, less back and forth trips, and trucks that pass the highest standard to be put to work. The process is quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app pod, work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. If you're a contractor, you don't need the dealership runaround. You need Work Trucks with an X. That's a fact. Service industry Work Trucks with an X. That's a fact. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. Clinton Highway, in Knoxville, in downtown Birmingham. You need Work Trucks for the entire inventory. Go online. You can see it right there. WorkTrucksLLC.com. Why risk chancing your future in business on a wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? WorkTrucksLLC.com. They'll find a perfect truck, outfit it, make sure it fits your need to a T. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporter of the Tennessee Vols. So here's what Will West had to say, and we'll ask him about this more tomorrow. Will said Tennessee isn't there yet. The offensive line was exposed a bit against Oklahoma. Understatement. Part of that is because of the injuries at tackle, but they would have to play better 3-5 defensive fronts than Oklahoma's through the rest of the season and the playoffs in order to win a championship. So he says Tennessee isn't there yet. How close are they if Will's correct, Caleb?
I disagree. They're not going to play that many better 3-5 defensive fronts than Oklahoma's. Whatever else you think about Oklahoma, that defensive front is really good, and it had been grading high throughout the year. It was their offense that was the problem. And so I don't even know if Alabama's defensive front is as good as Oklahoma's. Now, they're better in the secondary, probably. They have a much better offense. They're better all around, but I'm gonna break from Will on that because I actually think Oklahoma's defensive front may be the best Tennessee's going to face all year.
Okay, let's put on the poll. Did Caleb Calhoun just call Will West an idiot? No, he didn't. I did not. All right, so Lane Kiffin, of all people, takes a shot at Hugh Freeze. I want to get to that here momentarily. But first, I think, and if you check out the story, which is on offthehooksports.com, the fact that, let's take, to me, the one that stood out, and I'm curious which one stood out to you, but two stood out to me, that John Adams has thought for more than a week or two that Tennessee was a true national championship contender. John is thought of as what? One of the most pessimistic people that cover Tennessee football. I don't think that's the case, but that's what you think. That's fine. He's nice enough to join us each and every Tuesday. I think John's very high on this coaching staff. And then you have Josh Pate, who did bring up culture, which is a word that Caleb's coming around to. Caleb, Josh Pate has no reason to give us any kind of fluff or prop himself up to Tennessee's fan base. That's what he believes. And he said it even before I queried him about this specific question.
Yes. And you're right. Josh Pate himself he picked Florida to beat Tennessee last year. Nailed it. I thought he was crazy. And then Florida ended up beating Tennessee. And so you're right. A lot of these people, they don't have an incentive to be high on Tennessee as national title contenders. Now, I will say this. The college football landscape and the college football media, you want Tennessee in the mix. The online presence of Tennessee fans is just too great, honestly. It's if you guys throughout Tennessee's time on throughout the SEC on CBS era, during the decade of dysfunction, if you guys really listen to Vern Lundquist and Gary Danielson, and you can feel however you want to feel about the broadcasters, I think they sometimes get more hate than they deserve, but
Agreed.
That's just me. Gary desperately wanted he desperately always wanted Tennessee to be back. And he would constantly hint at that. And he finally got his chance to see them back in 2022, got a taste of it in 2016. But that's because broadcasters know it's good for ratings, it's good for revenue, it's good for the sport, it's good for everybody involved when Tennessee is relevant. It just is.
I agree. On the flip side, he hates the RPO game. He's the first person I've ever heard use the word bastardize. He said RPO is bastardizing the game. And he's probably right, because offensive linemen on a pass play are allowed to just run down the field as far as they want to. The rule is supposed to be 3 yards, but how many times do you see guys that are 6, 7, 8 yards down?
No, you're right. It's true. That's actually a very funny. It's a very good point. To me, that rule is always like a soccer rule, though. You know, like in soccer, how defenders can't get past how players can't get past the defense unless the ball's on the other side of the field, something like that.
Yes,
I think that's stupid. Get rid of the offside penalty.
Speaking of random, let's throw this out there on the poll question: should holding be a 5-yard penalty? And the reason I say so is you can protect the quarterback and not totally kill a drive. Caleb's brain, I can see, is working. We'll get his thoughts in just a minute.
Oh, defensive holding is a 5-yard penalty.
Okay, hang tight. I want to hear what you say about offensive holding up front, protecting the quarterback and not killing drives. Also, Lane Kiffin takes a massive shot at Hugh Freeze. Off the Hook Sports, 1 minute. 1 minute. We'll be right back.
I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
I'm going to make this really easy. Leading into this segment, it's who is the better person? Better person, is it Lane Kiffin or Hugh Freeze? And we're going to get to why that's pertinent right now. But first, what did you think about my concept of having a holding penalty on offense be just a 5-yard penalty? Is that crazy, or do you like it?
I hate it, and I'm going to tell you why I hate it. Do you realize how many times linemen blatantly hold because they don't want to give up a sack? And I'm like, really? Think about how much more you'll incentivize that. A 5-yard penalty and you replay the down versus a sack, which is usually a 5-yard loss at minimum anyway, and you lose the down. You know what, Dave? I'll get on board with you on this. Here's why. Here's how. You know, like how you have intentional grounding?
Yes.
Let's compromise here. Intentional grounding is a loss of down. I will give you 5-yard holding penalty should maybe be 5 yards on like a run play. But there should be like an intentional holding penalty where if a lineman holds a line, if an offensive lineman holds a guy just because he knows he's about to give up a sack, and it's treated like intentional grounding.
I like my idea better, but yours.
So you're just going to incentivize linemen to tackle guys whenever they're going at the quarterback at that point.
Yes, because I want to see the best players in the game. And the best players are most oftentimes the quarterback.
But you're never going to see a sack again.
No, I think you'll see a sack. But...
No, you would never see one.
Okay.
A 5-yard penalty is just replaying the down. I mean, that's incentivizing so much more blatant holding to avoid a sack.
Okay. We can agree to disagree. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial Bank for personal and business. Commercial Bank, life made better. CBTN.com. CBTN.com. Caleb, I'm going to hold you to a standard here, and that is football only. Okay. Which I know you've heard some things about Hugh Freeze, but way back in high school. But we don't have those confirmed. So I would just like to talk about Hugh Freeze versus Lane Kiffin. And
Confirmed is relative. Confirmed is relative, by the way. I know some people because it was in my city.
I'm not doubting you, but let's just deal with what we know. Oh, well, what we can confirm. All right, so why are we talking about Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin? You want to start with the Hugh Freeze, and we don't have to play the clip. We did that yesterday. But what did Hugh Freeze do, which is pretty much the worst thing you can do as a head coach within reason? I mean, the worst thing would be to hit a player like Butch Jones did. But within reason, I think the worst thing is to throw your players under the bus. And how did Hugh Freeze do that? And what was the response from his former player? And then we'll get to Lane Kiffin's response.
Yeah. So, and by the way, he didn't throw his players under the bus in the way that most coaches do, because the code for throwing players under the bus has always been, well, we just didn't execute. That's always been the way to throw a player under the bus, isn't it, Dave? When they just say we just didn't execute. Hugh Freeze took it a step further. He said, we got to find a quarterback that doesn't throw the ball to the other guy. Totally just threw his quarterbacks under the bus. By the way, you know who could have found that quarterback? Hugh Freeze. There's such thing as a transfer portal. But anyways, Bo Wallace, who was the quarterback that helped Hugh Freeze's rise to stardom at Ole Miss, was there when he beat Ole Miss in 2014. On Saturday night, just lit into Hugh Freeze and insisted that he wasn't drunk. But honestly, even if he was, I wouldn't care because it was still relevant. And so basically said that implied Hugh Freeze was pressuring him to take every injection possible to get out there and play, no matter how hurt he was getting, that Hugh Freeze would never take any blame, that no one's ever paying attention to all the times quarterbacks throw interceptions under him, and that they're the ones who never get blamed for it. Just, I mean, went off. And it really speaks to a red flag of, by the way, we kind of knew this about Hugh Freeze for this reason. And I'm just going to tell one quick side note that for those who don't remember, when Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss were under investigation, that's when Hugh Freeze leaked the fake story that these were violations committed by Houston Nutt. And he leaked that fake story because he wanted his players to sign with his program. And then once it came out that story was a lie, signing day will have been over and they would be stuck at Ole Miss anyway. So that's the type of person Hugh Freeze is. Houston Nutt got mad about it, filed a suit back. In discovery during that suit, that's when it came out that Hugh Freeze was making calls to prostitutes every other day. Okay, that's how that all went down. But it all started because Hugh Freeze tried to trick his recruiting class to being trapped in his Ole Miss signing period pre-transfer portal. So that's the backdrop of all of that and why he's a terrible person and doesn't care about his players.
Okay, backdrop of, well, also the backdrop is that he paid players left and right.
Oh,
and
left and right.
Yeah, the Laramie Tunsil thing was the most bizarre one. Remember, he was the one that showed up at the draft, and they had a clip of him smoking a gas mask bong, which I'm not sure where you get those, but for your needs around that situation, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. But listen, there was the Treadwell guy, the receiver that had a teammate on the team. There was Robert Kimdichi's brother was on the team. I would call that deft recruiting, really smart recruiting, DEFT. I would call that really smart recruiting by Hugh Freeze. But the Laramie Tunsil was the one that made no sense. Why would you go there instead of Alabama? That's going to make you an NFL superstar. So that's when I knew because I was deeply embedded in recruiting at the time that Pastor Hugh, as every other coach liked to call him, was passing cash around. I'll go ahead and tell you, I know you've heard some stuff about, Lane Kiffin in a car accident. I know you've heard those things. We all have. But we know for a fact Hugh Freeze wasn't smart enough to get a burner phone when he was calling women that he shouldn't. So I'm here to tell you that when it comes to morality, bank on it. And we'll go to our poll question. Lane Kiffin should be your choice. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Caleb, what say you, sir? Bank on it. I say Lane Kiffin is a far better person than Hugh Freeze. Would you agree or disagree?
Significantly agree. And I wanted to get to what Lane Kiffin said about Hugh Freeze in a second, but just from the start, significantly agree. Lane Kiffin, for all of his flaws, and he's got many, is not known for being a snake towards his players. Now, there have been, I'm just going to throw a name out. I know this, Dave. You were there. Josh McNeil, the old center of Tennessee, called Lane Kiffin a snake. But I more feel like Josh McNeil was bitter about losing his starting job, honestly.
Well,
his senior year.
Josh McNeil was a very emotional person. You could have caught him at the right time and got him to say anything. When he got caught in a bedroom with 3 girls, instead of just not talking to the media and allowing himself to be thought of as the coolest guy in the world, he decided to force his way through Tennessee Sports Information and give a crying press conference, which unfortunately I was interviewing somebody else, and that was before video and all that stuff, so I didn't get to see it. But I wish I would have, and I've listened to the recording and it's golden. But I'm not taking what Josh McNeil has to say. I'm going to take the fact that Lane Kiffin told Eric Berry, dude, you need to cruise. Now, it's not because Lane was leaving. It's because he thought Eric Berry, this pre-NIL, was ready to play in the NFL and shouldn't risk himself. I believe that. Do you believe that?
Yeah, Lane Kiffin. By the way, Lane Kiffin was shocked when he got the USC offer, guys. It was that day he was like 10th on the list. I don't think he ever thought the call was coming.
Yes. I thought surely Jack Del Rio would take it, but nevertheless, he also saved Jonathan Crompton's career by going all in on Jonathan. That was a huge gamble.
And he stuck his neck out there.
Yeah, and it almost blew up in his face because Jonathan wasn't good until the second half of the season. So as far as a guy, I will take Lane Kiffin 100 times over 100 when it comes to Hugh Freeze.
And here's what Lane Kiffin said, and this is why this all comes back to us, guys, because this is what he said the other day. Lane Kiffin had been asked about, he met with reporters ahead of the Ole Miss's SEC opener, and he asked about his relationship with Jackson Dart. And he talked about Dart's character and how great he is with kids and his nephew. And then he went out of his way to share his overall approach to quarterbacks and how he teaches them. And his quote, he says, I think it pays off when you have relationships and quarterbacks trust you too. And he goes, you can go back to Matt Corral when he threw 6 interceptions. And before I even got to the media, I sit down with him and tell him that we've got to do a better job calling plays and I have to coach better. And don't worry because we've got your back. And he said, I think that goes a long way. And it goes a long ways with kids in recruiting, knowing what they're going to get when they get here with relationships and that they can trust us to have their back. I mean, Dave, I got to be honest with you. He said that specifically because of what Hugh Freeze said the day before.
No question. That is not even a question about it. Yes, he knows how to troll people, especially, he knows how to troll people for fun, but he also knows how to troll people pragmatically. So don't think that Ole Miss and Auburn, which are about 3 hours apart from each other, maybe 4 at the most. Don't think that that's not a recruiting move. It certainly is. And the smart thing is what I thought was so bright about the way Lane did it is he did it in social media. Because you know what Trooper Taylor told me, and I would argue that he's one of Tennessee's best recruiters in the modern era of college football. Do you know what he told me?
What did he say?
He said, you never go into a living room and say another team's name. So you don't go into Bobby Joe, the 5-star quarterback's living room, and in front of their parents say, Hugh Freeze, did you hear what he said? He's going to throw you under the bus. Troop said, well, if you talk about somebody else, you're already down 14-0. So now if they bring it up, you can address it, but you never go in. So now he's got it out there, but he doesn't have to go in and sound like Sour Grapes Lane because he didn't get the Auburn job or any other thing that you could throw out there. Rich said it was really hard to vote in this one. That's pretty good.
So basically what you're saying is it's the recruiting is the opposite of political ads, where when you watch political ads, all you hear is how bad the other side is. You don't hear anything about the guy that they want you to vote for them.
Very true.
Yeah. So Lane, I could see that. I could also see that maybe Lane Kiffin was the dude that probably did some negative recruiting when he first got to Tennessee. Come on, Dave. Let's be honest. What do you think Lane Kiffin was doing in some of those living rooms? You don't think he was taking shots at Urban Meyer, being like, Urban Meyer is losing control of the program in Florida. He's not going to be there in a year.
Yeah. Derek's right. Never mentioned the other guy's name to the girl you like. young men. Same concept. Yeah, I agree with that. And I do want to thank Joshua for calling me a bum. I didn't know that I was a bum because I like to support small business. But nevertheless, hit that like and subscribe button. Time for the last look, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. We don't talk a lot of UNLV football, but we're going to right now because there's something happening in the desert that is going to happen in the SEC, that is going to happen in major conferences, and could perhaps happen to Tennessee one day. So let's discuss, because Tennessee's been on the forefront of NIL. Other schools haven't. Jaden Rashad has showed up to Florida, and his money wasn't there. It derailed his career. Caleb, pull this up right now and tell me about this young man that has decided he's running from the Rebels in the middle of the season.
Yeah, so Matthew, I'm going to tell the full story. Matthew Sluka was the Holy Cross quarterback for 4 years and transferred to UNLV this year. UNLV is off to a fiery hot start. They are led, by the way, by Barry Odom, who, in case you guys don't remember, was the Missouri offensive coordinator, or the Missouri head coach who hired Josh Heupel as offensive coordinator. They're 3-0. They have beaten Houston and Kansas, 2 Power 5 wins already on the road. They are now, with Memphis losing and with Northern Illinois losing, it's safe to say that UNLV is right there with Washington State in competition to be that group of 5 team to make the college football playoff this year. That's how good of a season they're having.
Yeah, so this is not, and I want to declare, this is not some nothing story. This is real. I mean, this is a team that could potentially be in the college football playoff. Probably a reach, but could.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're second right now. They probably be second on Vegas odds right now of the group of 5 teams, only to Washington State. Their quarterback, Matthew Sluka, has now revealed in the middle of the season that he is going to take a red shirt and hit the transfer portal. So he put this little thank you picture first up, and then he put this out. And here's what he said. I've decided to utilize my redshirt year and will not be playing in any additional games this season. I committed to UNLV based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled. Despite discussions, it became clear that these commitments would not be fulfilled in the future. I wish my teammates the best of luck this season and hope for the continued success of the program.
I feel like there's more that we don't know, but let's take it on face value. You start. What are your thoughts on this? Last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
I think it's exactly what we think. And guys, I've told you before, and many people haven't paid attention, but I've said UNLV is one of these sleeping giants of college football as a small program, because a program based in Vegas with sports gambling reaching its apex allows for NIL to really get involved at that school. It's the biggest school in Nevada, and Vegas, Dave, how much of a recruiting lure is it to go say you want to come play in Vegas? So there's a lot of UNLV could own the West in a lot of ways. I think they put the cart in front of the horse, and I think they saw that same thing I saw, and they pulled a Florida, and they started throwing out NIL money and NIL promises without cobbling together the necessary NIL money. And now I think it's coming back to bite them. And I think this is just the first.
Hey, may I say I'm very proud of our fan base, because I said who is the better person, Lane Kiffin or Hugh Freeze, and Lane Kiffin won 89%. New poll before I give you my take on exactly what I think about this young man quitting, which is essentially it. Would you like UNLV to be in the SEC, which would mean occasional trips to Vegas, which I know some of you would
yes
like. Yeah,
let's do it, Dave.
That wouldn't be that bad. Last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Here's the problem with all this in 15 seconds.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
Caleb, you know me. I'm all for players getting all they can, right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how much this young man got to go to UNLV, but here is the problem, and it's not a labor issue, and you might have a really, really big problem with this, and I'm cool with it. If you are, you can call me some kind of socialist or communist. But the reason there needs to be some sort of limit, and there's going to be, the House has to pass this, there needs to be some sort of limit on what a player can make, is, in my opinion, because of issues like this. So he may take the UNLV money, and that's enough, and then he just says, I'm going to sit. So in some cases, guys have been made financially independent. And for those of you that say, well, that's fine, I mean, Nico's worth that much. Well, what if Nico up and decides, like Andrew Luck, that the game's too physical and he doesn't want to be a part of it anymore? What if, there's so much money right now at play. I think I'm pro salary cap, and typically I'm for you get all you can. But I think this is what happens when you just throw a ton of money at somebody. I don't know what he got, but there's that potential for that. And the transfer portal is so easy. That's why I think culture, that word again, is the most underrated thing you can have in college football. And Tennessee's very blessed to have it right now. Better than, I would say, the lion's share of Power 4 teams.
Okay, I'm going to push back because in this situation, Dave, I don't think it was him who came back and wanted to renegotiate. It's looking like UNLV didn't uphold their promises to him. What do you do if you were promised something from an NIL perspective and then you get there, you deliver them to a 3-0 start, put them in contention for the college football playoff, which nobody saw, and then you're not getting the money you were promised?
Okay, that's fair. And I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. So let me ask you this. Does he owe it to his teammates to go out there and play? Let's say that he was supposed to get $100. I'm sure he got something. Let's say $100 and he got 50. Okay, I'm just throwing out nice, easy numbers. Does he owe it to his teammates to go out there and play?
No. I mean, you play for your teammates in the confines of the field, but you have those teammates by thinking for yourself first. And I'm sorry. I think he's got to look out for himself. Also, this kid is not going to the NFL. I don't know if you look at his numbers. He's a run first quarterback. He's never going to make it in the NFL. He's completing like 43% of his passes. He's a college weapon, but this is his chance to make the most money. This is the type of kid that he should take all the NIL money he can get right now. And I think he knows that. So there's absolutely no reason for him to do this for his players or his team. UNLV should pony up the money. Someone said it. You're right. UNLV could be mafia NIL. Here's the thing with Tennessee, Dave. It would be epic, right? By the way, he better hope the mafia didn't cobble that. Isn't the one he's bailing on with that. But
my gosh, he shows up and he's he's suddenly in a car that just exploded because he's for the rebels.
Exactly. By the way, and that's the thing with Tennessee, Dave. You and I both know Tennessee doesn't lie about NIL to their players. They deliver on every promise, and they have a full-on layer of what to do. I'm not actually opposed to a salary cap in NIL the way you think. My only issue with the salary cap is people saying that don't want a salary floor. A salary cap means that there should be a salary floor for every player playing, even the most unimportant player on the team.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. If you do a salary floor, but then you say we have to guarantee, and then you have a union and say the players can guarantee this amount of money has to be set aside for us every year, then I'm okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. UNLV broke a promise to this kid. He has every right to do what he wants to do. And by the way, Florida's just lucky that Jaden Rashada figured it out before the season. But here's the question, Dave.
He did, but he didn't. I mean, before the fiscal year, he showed up in January. He's supposed to be the starter. Theoretically, the next fall.
That's true. But
that's pretty late in the process to not know you have cash. He ended up having to go to Arizona State?
Yep. And now yep. And here's the thing. Tennessee is one of those schools, as you know, Dave, that's promising things on the back end. And this is why this is relevant. This kid clearly wasn't getting what he was promised on the back end. There's going to be a lot of schools that have marquee games in September that need a player for that marquee game. And they might make a promise and say, we'll give this to you on the back end at the end of September. They don't give it. That player transfers after helping them win that game.
Okay, so what's the young man's name again?
Matthew Sluka.
How do you spell Matthew Sluka?
MATTHEWSLUKA.
Okay. I'm gonna put a poll question up. Should Matthew Sluka be afraid of the mob? I mean, surely not. But you know,
I mean, if Saudi Arabia is going to get in on college football, you know the mafia will.
Where's Saudi Arabia in college football?
Oh, they've been looking to buy a college football conference or a team because they want. Do you know this? They want a sports watch for all their human rights violations. So they're. I mean, I think Florida State and Clemson are about to be like, "Hey, Florida State, hey, Saudi Arabia, where's that Saudi money? Come on," because they're stuck in the ACC.
Okay. Should Matthew Sluka be afraid of the mob? Yes. Can't quit on the mob. No, it's all corporate in Vegas. By the way, somebody mentioned if you can give us our earlier standing of our poll question, and would you want UNLV to be an SEC team? So our poll question now, should Matthew Sluka be afraid of the mob? He shouldn't be afraid. The mob's not a real thing anymore, is it?
I mean, what? Here's the thing, Dave. What is an illegal operation to one person is a recognized corporation to another person. Just like what is terrorism to one country is military protection to another country.
Okay.
You know,
it sounds like to me that Caleb may be in the mob.
I'm saying the mob.
You look Scotch Irish or maybe English. What are you?
I'm just every form of white there is.
Yes. Okay. Well, you know, so he can't be a made man, but he could be like Ray Liotta in the one movie. Help me with the name of that movie. Come on. It was the best mob movie ever.
I don't watch mob movies.
All right. Well, you're missing out. And you don't watch James Bond movies. Put it on a poll question. I'm questioning Caleb's toughness. Hit like and subscribe now. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Again, a record number of people in here. Guys, we're blessed. Appreciate you. We don't ask for you to be on our message boards or any of those great things. Nathaniel says mob's still a real thing in Vegas. Okay. But I do want Goodfellas. Thank you, Nathaniel. That's an incredible movie. Incredible movie. Want to thank you again as we continue to grow. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Also, if you see over my shoulder something new, this is something that you need to have, and it's presented by Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from, and right down below, asiacafe.org, you will see the link. But this is the 6-to-1 Brazilian Cocoa Energy Booster Premix Instant White Coffee that I've made a part of my daily routine, and it's incredible. Golden Label coffee bag with Philip Lim's grandfather and grandmother right there. Goes back to 1909 with the Lim dynasty, so they know what they're doing. Philip has carried the torch as 3 generations family business, and now the Lim dynasty is in Knoxville, Tennessee. Great food we ate there this week, but also Nathaniel's going to Asia Cafe for lunch. Good call. I'll be there later this week with Ollie Lane grabbing a bite, who may or may not join us since we're going to take Friday off, but he may be tomorrow. So anyway, but again, check out the coffee. You can order it online. Again, asiacafe.org, and it is unbelievable. Tomorrow on the program, we will, of course, visit with Will West, who is a little bit under the weather, as Caleb has been. Caleb, thank you so much. I know you've been fighting hurt. Adam says casino. I don't know what that means. All right. And that's not really David Spade. All right. There you go. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. We'll see you each weekday at 10 a.m. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.